way to recognize the outstanding work of a citizen who helps safeguard the well-being of children in our community. So again, even though we can't have it, a more formal type of ceremony at Care House, we decided to have it anyway because we believe it's important to acknowledge those individuals in our community who see something, say something. And that's what we talk about on our billboards, that's what we talk about protecting children, and that's what occurred in this particular case. So this year's recipient is Tiffany Martin, who is with us today. Before I go on, I want to acknowledge Sergeant Mike Aiken with the Miamisburg Police Department because he's the officer who actually investigated, the lead detective and the officer who investigated this case, and also Kelly Madthe and Frank Garris, who are the assistant prosecutors who handled the case, and Sky, who is one of our victim advocates who worked with Tiffany. So again, Tiffany Martin is this year's Champion of Children Award recipient. Ms. Martin's daughter was 7 years old at the time, and she disclosed to her mother that she and two other girls had been sexually assaulted for approximately 3 years by a family friend. Tiffany immediately contacted the Miamisburg Police Department. On April the 1st of 2019, defendant Scott Pate, who was 54 years old, was indicted for over 20 counts of rape, gross sexual imposition, and other related charges stemming from the incident. Once news of the indictment was made public, an additional victim came forward and reported to the police that she also had been sexually assaulted by that same person. Subsequently, the defendant was indicted for an additional 4 counts due to his terrible relationship with that girl and his sexual conduct. Additionally, sexually violent predator specifications were added to the original 22 counts of the indictment by Ms. Madthe and Mr. Garris. In October of last year, after a jury trial, the defendant was found guilty as charged on 25 total counts. A separate trial was held on the sexually violent predator specification, and the court found the defendant guilty also of being a sexually violent predator, which is very significant, which we'll talk about in a moment. In January of this year, the defendant was sentenced to 10 consecutive terms of life in prison without the possibility of parole. In addition, he received an additional and consecutive 58 years to life in prison. He was given the maximum time possible under the Ohio Code. What makes this case special is that Tiffany's grandmother to the children, was acquainted with the defendant and his wife. When Tiffany's mother passed away, the defendant and his wife became like grandparents to Tiffany's children. Tiffany's daughter, who was again sexually molested by this defendant, referred to him as Papa. Clearly, Tiffany was devastated when she found out that someone she considered like family had victimized her own daughter and other children. But Tiffany didn't hesitate to report the disclosure to the police in order to protect her children and other children as well. And this came at a cost to her. It wasn't easy, and it is never easy for anyone who reports child abuse. And it wasn't for her because there were some people who were considered like family to her who rejected that, who did not support her. And these are things that she had to deal with while at the same time protecting her child and other children. So even though that she received rejection from people who she considered like family, she persevered. She did everything needed in order to help our office convict a violent sexual predator and hold him accountable for what he did to children. For these reasons and more, the awards committee and I have determined that Tiffany Martin should be the recipient of the Champion of Children Award this year, and I'm proud to have Tiffany with us today. Tiffany? So again, I'm going to turn it over for Tiffany, and unfortunately I have to stand over here.
Well, I'd just like to thank the moment of being here. Really didn't want to be here because of this, but my children is what kept me going. They will always, I did what I needed to do for the sake of my children. I always will. Just what mothers do.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We have something to give to you.
Okay.
We have some flowers, and we'll set them over there so you don't have to take them. But we have flowers and an engraved vase for you to keep the flowers in, okay? And we have a few other things too. And I don't know if the press has any questions that they want to ask you or not.